Hi, we're Option Conservation, and this is the Shoot Room Sessions. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Rich. Welcome to the Shoot Room. Thank you very much.
Who on earth are you and what do you do?
My name's Rob March. I'm the founder and managing director of Beard, also known as We Are Beard.
Excellent. Can you take us through your life story, Rob? Where did it start? How on earth did we get to this point? How on earth do you have a company called We Are Beard? All the key chapters.
All of those bits. Okay. Yeah. There's a few key moments, I think. I'm one of the rare folks that went to university and did a degree and got a job doing the thing that's related to that degree. So I did a degree in graphic design, but realistically, I probably enjoyed being a student more than I enjoyed the course, and certainly learned more about myself outside of lectures than I did in the lectures. I came out of it really not enjoying design. I was thinking, if this is really what it's about, then this isn't for me. And so I spent probably after I finished uni, 6 or 8 months.
When did you go to uni?
I went to uni in Leeds, University of Leeds, which, whilst folks who went to University of Leeds would say it's the better of the Leeds unis, if you're doing a design course, you probably would want to be at either the Art College or the Met. But the university, we were one of the first years that they'd run this course, and it felt like it. So I had so many different tutors through the years, and my lack of discipline and their lack of knowledge of really how to do this, I think, combined in me not really connecting with the course, with the discipline, learning as much as I should do. And so I got my degree, rubbish degree. I got a 2-2, it's fine. But it's one of those things at the time, it matters because it's front and center. And then you actually get into your career and it just is something that's there in the rearview mirror. And I have a big thing about not tending to look backwards and just looking forward. So that is what it is. But so I spent probably 6 or 8 months after university doing odd jobs in various places. So I worked on a building site, worked at Cluggies, and worked on a country farm for a while as well. In the midst of all of that, I was going to random gigs and bits and pieces, and I'd found out that my cousins are musicians and they were doing quite well for themselves. And so I went to a few of their gigs and got to know them. And so two people, the family of 4, they're all incredibly talented, but the 2 people that really sort of made a name for themselves, there's a guy called Tom Baxter and a guy called Charlie Winston. And in the sort of the early noughties, Tom was signed to Sony, and around it's the sort of Damien Rice, James Blunt sort of era, and he was very much that tormented singer-songwriter type. An incredible voice, an incredible artist. And I got to know his brother Charlie as well, who was also a musician who was playing in Tom's band at the time and was going to do his own thing. I went down to see Charlie at a gig, and I was doing all these random jobs and was chatting to him about what I was doing with my life and what he was doing. And I asked him about what did you do when being a musician didn't work for you? What did you do? And he's like, I've always just been a musician. I was like, yeah, but when that couldn't sort of afford you the things you needed, what did you do? He goes, I was always a musician. I've brought up a musician. I've always been a musician. I just made being a musician work for me. So I busked. I've written things for schools. I've done wherever I've played in other people's bands. I've been session music, anything I could do to earn money doing the thing that I loved. And I came away from it kind of thinking, well, I used to think that's what I wanted to do, because I always really only ever wanted to be a designer or be in design. It's the only thing I've ever felt like I was any good at, particularly. And I'd lost it at university, partly through booze and also partly through the sort of, I just like to say, not engaging with the course. So I gave myself a year to actually get into the industry again, and I set myself briefs and built a portfolio and started applying to jobs, and got into found a job, and it happened to be back in Scunthorpe, which is where I grew up. And that wasn't the intention at all. I just found myself back there and I thought I'd escaped. But in the first 3 months of that job, and a shout out to Kate as well, who gave me my first job, and she probably wouldn't ever hear this, but I'm so thankful for her to give me that opportunity, because I was her first employee, and it gave me everything that I needed to actually understand what I needed to be as a designer. You learn so much more when you're actually in the role than you ever can do from the theory of doing stuff. You can learn the software, but until you're in it, you just don't know. And so that set me on my career path. Something else that happened around the same sort of time as that. So in my first year of being in that job, I started having some health problems. And so I'd had some health problems previously, but I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 22. And really that was something that didn't, at the time, have a huge impact. But looking back on it, it sort of, I think, gave me a bit of an early shake, and was something that I felt I just needed to just keep pushing. And I always knew I wanted to do stuff. So I think I started chasing things a little bit more than maybe I had done previously. And I'd taken a lot of things for granted up until that point, and I stopped doing that as much.
So for people who aren't familiar with the condition or term,
Yes.
how would you explain it to people?
It's so different for so many people. So there's three main variants of multiple sclerosis of MS. You have primary progressive, secondary progressive, and relapsing remitting. I don't know enough about a lot of the condition to talk for everybody about it. I only really know how it affects me. And it's something that I just had it with. I actually had my first symptoms when I was 18, and it was diagnosed as something called Guillain-Barré syndrome. But it wasn't that, because when I had more symptoms 3 or 4 years later, the consultant pretty much told me that that's not, if it's the same as what you had last time, you don't really get Guillain-Barré twice. So we think it's this. And so was talking to me about this. And so Lisa, my other half, had already diagnosed it. She just hadn't told me. She knew what it was, and she'd done the research, and I was just happy being oblivious, that kind of ignorance is bliss and all that. But I think, so with me, it started with numbness. And so I have numbness in my feet, and I have relapsing remitting, which basically means I have these periods where I have relapse, where I'll have exacerbated symptoms of numbness in my feet and in my legs and in my hands and things like that. And then you recover. And so if you start, before you have any symptoms, you start at 100%. My symptoms and my condition would mean that I probably, I'd drop down to 80% of function in my hand or something like that, or less, whatever it is. And then it recovers and it goes back to 99%. It very rarely goes back to 100%. It's a little bit, the best way I can describe it is, it's like when you cut yourself, it heals, but there's always a scar there. And so when you have a relapse, you have these little scars. It's your immune system attacking the nerves in your brain, which stops the messages being passed to your body correctly. So if you have an MRI scan after you've had relapses, you'll have these little dots that glow up, which are the little sites where the nerves have been attacked. These little bits that just glow up on the scan, and it's cumulative, and it's something that. For me, I'm really fortunate that I've got the good type of MS. It's something I do have it relapsing remitting. It's something that can become secondary progressive, where you don't have as much respite from it. But I'm fortunate that the treatments I've had have helped me to kind of to stay generally pretty healthy. But kind of going back to the thing with it being, because I realised we've strayed way off kind of the career path aspect of it.
This is all awesome.
Yeah. So I was working in an agency in Worcester. So I did the M62. So I was kind of Scunny, Leeds, Manchester. And the idea was to live and stay in Manchester. And I love Manchester. But my other half, who's now my wife, got offered a job in Manchester, but then was offered a better opportunity to stay in Worcester. So I moved down to Worcester, which is where I am now. And I love Worcester to bits now. And I couldn't ever see me moving from there. But it also meant that I moved to an agency that was smaller, in a smaller community. And because I'd been working in Leeds and Manchester and still relatively kind of young in my career, I felt relatively confident and a bit assertive, and I just knew what I wanted to do with it. And I brought a couple of nice projects into the agency that I was working at, and one of them contacted me outside of work and said, look, would you be interested in actually doing this yourself? And at the end of that phone call, I decided that I was going to do my own thing, and that was it. And that was the start of me doing my own business. And I spent probably 2 months doing my due diligence, which is really me proving to Lisa it was the right thing for me to do. But that was the starting point. That phone call was when it all happened, and that phone call was really me wanting to just have more control of my own future. And I just wanted to push things and live it and just see where it went. And I've never really been worried about not having a job. And so even with going into this and having to seek out work, I've always kind of felt, well, if this doesn't work, I'll just do something else and just keep pushing forward. And again, if it goes wrong, I'll fix it. I'll do something else and just keep pushing. And that's how I've always felt about it. And
where do you think that mindset comes from?
I'm generally quite a positive person and I try and be quite upbeat about it. But I also think that a part of it is down to the sort of the diagnosis. It's strange talking about it because people who are close to me know about it, but not many people in the business know about it, and the people that I feel need to know about it. But it's something that I think has affected so many of the decisions that I've made, and a little bit I came to realize that that's often just how I approach lots of things. So when I was diagnosed, there's no point in me dwelling on that diagnosis and dwelling on the problem. What can we do? What's the positive thing? What can I do to be proactive? What can I do in terms of my own health? What are the treatments that are available? What can I do? What's next? And that's really just how I approach almost all of these things. And so I think that my approach with any business issues, it's just the same thing. It's just no point in dwelling. I don't see there's any kind of issue in sort of being there because you're just looking this way, and that doesn't benefit anybody. I think that it's just, like I say, just looking forward and, okay, what's next? Move on to the next thing. And it doesn't really matter what that next thing is, as long as it's stepping in what you think is hopefully of the right direction, but you never really know. Let's move forward. Yeah.
When you talked about not really connecting with the course at uni.
Yeah.
Did you think that working might be enjoyable when you were a student?
It's a really good question.
This is only a recent one from doing the podcast. I've realised this. It never occurred to me that work might be fun or good or better than being a student. Because, and full disclosure, Rob and I grew up very close to each other. We probably played sport against each other, but didn't know.
We were probably rivals without knowing it. Yeah.
And we weren't very good, though. I'm almost sure better. We were crap. And that part of the world where we're from doesn't have aspirations or hopes or visions. It's quite the reverse. But anyway, and I never thought work could be a good thing. It was always, work meant manual labour, physical pain, uncomfortableness, horrible. Scunthorpe Steelworks, for example, for me. So I was like, I've got to just stay in uni forever because I don't want to be an adult. That's horrible, and it means worrying even more about money and things just being bad. And up until the last few months, it hadn't occurred to me that's what I thought about work.
It's interesting. So I don't suppose, I'd never really even thought about it. I think work was just a means to an end for a long time for me. But I spoke to you about this earlier, but I think what I realised quite early on is that area, Scunthorpe, Wintringham, the areas that I kind of grew up, just weren't for me. I just didn't want to be there long term. I never saw me being there when I was a grown up. And so the first opportunities that I had to not be there, I kind of got out of it. And partly because I've got some really close friends who still live around that area, and I'll go back and see them fairly regularly. And love them to pieces, but they're still in that area, and that wasn't me. Are
they still the same people they were when?
What's really strange is that they're not the same people, but I'm a different person significantly. And when I go back, I still think of a lot of these things in school years, and so my mates that I go back and hang around with are my mates from my year at school. And I would never have hung around with the kids 2 or 3 years older or 2 or 3 years younger, because you just don't do that when you're at school. That's just not how it works. And so when I go back and we'll go to the pub and these people come across that were the year below and were the years above, but are all really good mates with my mates, I didn't ever make that connection with them. So I'm still that dickhead from the year below. And that really annoying person, whatever like that. And so I've not created a bond with them at all. So I'm an outsider in that group now, and they are for me as well. I've never connected with them. They've never connected with me, and we can be sociable and we'll get.
Do you have long hair at school?
No.
So they must be like, I kind of recognise that guy, but it must be jarring because I'm assuming you didn't have the beard either.
No.
So you must look so much different.
I think my sort of sort of year 11, I just about managed to grow like a Michael Greco.
I had like a patch in my beard until I was like 25 that actually filled in. So it was ridiculous.
No, I could here on kind of underneath, like did the whole kind of the whole strap under the chin.
It's like the Robert Pires thing as well.
Yeah, that's it. So exactly, Robert Pires did that thin stripe, and as it grew, it just kind of it got wider as it thickened out.
It's giving away our ages here.
I know, it's ridiculous.
How on earth did you end up calling the business We Are Beard?
So when I set the business up, because I'd moved down to Worcester probably 18 months prior to that, I didn't have a network in Worcester at all. I didn't know other people, so I didn't have something that I could fall back on or people I could contact. So I just did a lot of networking. And at the time, I'd grown a relatively hefty beard. There's always a beard there. It's really short at the moment, but it's always there.
Is Lisa Pro long or short with the beard?
This length or longer. Doesn't like it when it's really short because it's too scratchy.
Fair.
So
Elle's celebrating off camera. Good luck, Anne.
So at the time when I first started out doing my own thing, I didn't really know as well whether this was a business or whether I was just a freelancer. I hadn't really even thought that far ahead. I'd just jumped into doing the work and being paid and doing all right with that.
I think that is a function of where we came from, because people didn't have businesses. There wasn't, you worked for somebody else and you did your hours and you finished. The interns, especially we meet now, they have a plan. They know how businesses work. They think about these things. I was just doing the next thing, do the next thing.
100%. And for a long time, I really hate the phrase imposter syndrome. It feels like it's bandied about loads and loads, but I felt like I was just making stuff up as I was going along. And so I didn't have a plan. And so the only reason it became Beard was because I got to a stage where I was doing some freelance work for a couple of agencies, but there isn't really a big freelance community in Worcester. So I was doing bits that were a bit further afield, but building up a few clients in the area as well. I then got to a stage where I was doing enough work just for clients to get to a stage where I could probably afford financially and with the volume of work to bring somebody else in. And that's when I kind of made the decision to actually, okay, let's go. This needs to be a completely limited company, needs to separate it from me entirely. And so at the time, people knew me as Rob Beard. Even that's not my name, but people know me as Rob Beard because I had a big beard and I was Rob. And so it was Mr. Beard. Kind of people would introduce me as Mr. Beard. Hello, Mr. Beard. How's it going? And all these networking things, that was just the nickname I got given. So I just used that. We are Beard. Let's just embrace that and go with it. So Beard just came from that. It's become a cross to bear in some respects.
Why?
Because I still look.
You can't shave the beard
because
off.
you can never shave. But that's also the first thing that everybody says about it as well. When you can never shave, and the problem is that everybody says it. They think that's the first time I've heard it as well, and I've heard that a lot. And when Dave, my business partner, joined the business, someone sent a message to him and referenced beard and not being able to grow it, and he was like, "Oh, it's hilarious. He's just mentioned this." I was like, "Honestly, mate,
It's not going to be."
You'll get really tired of it really quickly. But no, I'm still really proud of that. I still really like it, and we've helped a lot of businesses also with their brand name over the years. And really, unless you get it catastrophically wrong, once you've named it, it's not too important.
It's like children, right? So on my wife's side of the family, there's some very unusual family names for the children. And you hear them first and you're like, okay. And then you meet the child and it just becomes the same.
Yeah.
Because actually, when you step back and think about it, any person's name would be weird if it was applied to an object or something else.
Yeah.
Like, so my kids are Emma and George. George isn't a normal word, it's a name. So all names are essentially made up anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
What I love about yours is it conveys so much authenticity, but I'm sensing that wasn't an intentional choice. You kind of happened upon that. It wasn't like you went out, I'm going to be really authentic and open about it. You just were?
No, but I think that for a long time, authenticity is a bit of a buzzword nowadays, but I think it's rooted in something that's really important as well. But ultimately, it's just being yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was thinking I'm going to be super authentic.
No, it wasn't a conscious choice.
This is just, people know me as this. Why don't I just embrace that?
Where we're from, being different and authentic and being yourself was not encouraged. If you were different, you were literally like, I remember at school, so now, if there was any guys who were flamboyant or charismatic or whatever, they'd have been hit for being gay when we were at school. It was that level of difference. Or, I remember girls in the sort of years principally above that were bullied for being attractive. And that's any form of differential. You just had to be in the pack. If you were tall or short, fat or thin, you were just hammered for that point of difference. Yeah. And I think it's so lovely that we're so much more accepting and celebrative of difference now, I think.
Without a doubt. It's really strange. It's only you saying that to me even think about it. But I think I've always been a bit of a chameleon in some respects with that, in that I was relatively sporty as a kid, and but I didn't hang around with the sporty kids at school particularly. I got on with them because I was sporty, so it was worth me. They knew it was worth me hanging around with them because I fitted in with their crowd. I wasn't an outsider in that respect, but that wasn't really my crowd particularly. So I'd hang around with other kids that weren't the the cool kids and stuff like that, just because I was more comfortable talking with that, with people like that. But I could sort of go between them, and I still do that now to an extent. I think there's a part when I've done all this networking in the past. I don't enjoy networking particularly, but what
does networking mean to you?
It really depends. What I've associated it with for a long time was a necessary evil of me going out there and shouting about who I was, because I felt nobody's going to know about me unless I go and shout about me. But actually what I learned from it was how to communicate with people more effectively. I'd have to give these 60-second elevator pitches all the time. And I've done thousands of them now. And I used to really, every single time, be so nervous about doing those, and make notes in advance. So every single one, it was at 6:30 in the morning, and I'd be up 2 hours beforehand, just because I was nervous about it and I wanted to make sure I had it right. And I'd scripted it like a wedding speech. So every single one, I knew exactly what I was going to say. But after a while, you start to realize, no, I've got this actually. Bit by bit, I can just go in there and say, I'm going to talk about this today. And it gave me a skill of just standing up, and I was like, I know who I am and I know what I do. I'm just going to talk about that. And it's very clear on like question 3, I have a habit of waffling as well. So actually filling 60 seconds isn't that difficult. It's kind of like when they talk about if you're needing to do a presentation that lasts 10 minutes, you should always aim for it to be sort of 7 to 8 minutes, because you'll always go longer. That was very much the case for me.
I'm doing something at a big sustainability event in April, and it's taking every element of discipline not to switch out my presentation on natural capital and do 45 minutes on leg spin bowling. Just not tell the audience it's coming. And Claire, like, you're not doing that, Rich, you're not doing that. But it'd be brilliant if so the first 50 minutes are going to be focused on drop and the art and top spin. Just see the audience and be like, see if I can get them all to leave. Would be hilarious. So I'm going to pick on the entrepreneurial part of your mind for the moment. What were some of the challenges you faced when you were deciding to go from being the Mr. Beard to We Are Beard?
Growing a team is difficult. There's a few different things, I suppose.
You can make some massive mistakes in recruitment, can't you? Total joke.
I think one of the things that you only really learn these things from experience, unfortunately. And so, because I didn't ever really have a grand plan, if I'm honest, I still don't really have a grand plan now. There's things that I do have loose objectives and things like that, but I try not to get too fixated on things as well. But quite early on, there was a phrase that, again, has become quite a common thing. There's a bit of a working thing, which is don't be a dick. And don't be a dick is really quite important for us. We have it on our website. When we talk our about page and stuff, it's there front and center. We've got a very specific looking cactus on there that represents that particular statement. It's
Specific looking cactus. That's the title of the podcast. Right?
Yeah.
Specific looking cactus.
It's really important because
it's the All Blacks as well, right? No dickheads. Same principle. Yeah.
But it applies both ways as well, because treat others as you would be treated. All those sorts of things. The people that I want working with me, I want to have that relationship with them as well.
Literally the line you just said was so important. We had this application once. I think it was an application. It was a very sycophantic letter written to me by this person declaring themselves as essentially the savior of the globe.
Right.
Declaring me similar and that we must definitely work together on this and we could make everyone do as we wanted. And I was like, okay, you're really crazy and we're totally not doing that. And it was the distinction of the people that work for you and with you. And I think some people think that's semantics. I really don't think it is. I think in business, if you think people work for you, you're fucked. Because no, they don't. If you've got people that want to work with you, that's amazing. So I love to use the phraseology there.
Well, I think it's really important. I think we've also, but at the same time, I think we've sometimes taken it too far. I think that for a long time, I remember the first person I ever took on, we went for a coffee and I decided, I'm like, can I sit next to this person? Because at the time didn't have an office. I was working out of my attic conversion and I had to go home and tell my wife, was she my wife then? She would have been, yes. That I just employed someone and that for the next 3 months he was going to be working out of our house. Which was a fun one. But that was really about, could I have a relationship with this person sitting from me to you away every single day in my attic?
We literally ask that now. We have like the car journey, because we travel a lot together. Often if we can, there'll be an element of let's have a car journey with this person and sit in for 3 hours. Can you do that?
They talk about it, kind of the wanky phrase I've heard about is like, it's called a chemistry test. A kind of that you've got to see what that thing is. And we have it with meetings all the time. And so there's so many things which are seen as being quite a glib or a kind of a flippant statement. Kind of when you talk about, I'm going to trust my gut and things like that. I still trust my gut with so many of these situations. At the same time, I've made mistakes with that and you learn from each of those things. But if I look back on some of the mistakes, very often it's because I've not listened to the thing where it said, I'm not sure if this is quite right, but for some reason I've thought, I'm just going to try it anyway. I'm going to do this thing anyway. And that's been with people that we've brought into the business. It's not always worked out, but and as well, one of the things I've learned from that is when it hasn't worked out, I need to be more proactive because we're friendly. We're all friends. We're all mates. We don't want to be the person that says, this isn't working, I'm afraid. We're going to have to let you go, or we just, whatever that conversation needs to be.
In my experience, that rarely comes as a surprise.
No.
When you say to someone, it's not working, is it? They're like, yeah, it really isn't.
No, exactly.
They're never like, well, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
No, they never do.
So I think that's one of the things that I've really learned over the years is just to be more proactive in some of these conversations. When it's sometimes what you might class as a difficult conversation, to have it earlier rather than leave it festering, because again, that's something where when we've had a couple of people and we've had a really good hit rate with the people we've brought in. A lot of the people who've been with us for a long time, and we're a small business and we can't pay mega bucks. What we can offer them is hopefully a place they're going to really enjoy working, that we can give them something back that's more than just a financial reward at the end of it. And I think that's borne fruit with the people we've brought in. But part of that has always been, we have got it wrong on a couple of occasions, like I say. And so I think that when I do look back on that and I think of the things that I've kind of got wrong, I'm trying to not make those same mistakes now. I'm trying to be more proactive about some of the things there. And I've lost the thread of where I was going with that.
How amazing you are at recruitment.
Yeah.
No, it's what the other challenges are as well. So the recruitment side of things, I think a lot of people that start businesses will say that's difficult and challenging. And probably 10 people we brought in a head of people, Andrew, who has a PhD in performance psychology, which from a recruitment perspective really helps. And also I love how we recruit at the moment. So we try and make it a feature of having an incredibly inspiring and exciting offering and ad and title and things, and your help with the website has been a massive part of that in terms of building a brand that people want to work with and be part of. But then we include a lot of people in the team in the process, so lots of people screen CVs and have initial meetings, then panel meetings and things. And hopefully did a lot of research on it, and Google think 4 touch points is the perfect one for the person to understand the business and for you to understand them. But if you can get them to meet 7 or 8 people through that process, they get a real honest view of what the business is like. They don't just see me talking on a podcast and assume that's what the business is like. So That's really helped us from a recruitment perspective. What about some of the bits that, you know, you just found that you really enjoyed about building the business? Which are the bits that you're like, I really love that part of it, or that chapter, or that time?
I think I'm a people person, so I've loved bringing people into the business. Even when things have been tricky, because it's not been at all kind of plain sailing throughout that time. It was 2009 that I actually went self-employed. In 2011 that the business was formed. So we've been going for a good amount of time now. We've still got really good relationships. I've still got really good relationships with a lot of the people that don't work for us anymore. One of the guys moved down to London, has since moved to Cardiff, and was freelancing for us again last week. And we've had, when I mentioned about having a good hit rate, we've had people who've left the business. Again, maybe grass is greener situations, thinking we're a small business and they could get more elsewhere, who've then applied for jobs when we've been looking for work in the future. And that's a difficult one, because there's a part of me that moves on. When I talk about not looking back, it's not that I wouldn't ever employ someone that used to work for us, but it feels as though I'm in a different place a lot of the time when these situations arise. And so I'm not looking for that. And a little bit, I think, you're not looking for that either. The person that's applying, there's maybe something familiar that they want to get back, but it's never going to be the same thing again. And so let's not try and revisit that. I just don't think it's the right way of doing it.
The way you treat people and the way in and out of business is really fascinating. So when we worked for Sanctus, where you and I first met, where I was working there, they could not have been more incredible people in terms of, you know, they treated us absolutely amazing as and hopefully I think they would feel that we said, look, we love what we're doing here. We have an opportunity to do something very different. We'd like to step into this space, but they were incredible. That's not the experience I'd had with previous employers. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going elsewhere.
I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but in the last month or so, Jurgen Klopp's announced his retirement, leaving Liverpool. And you don't have to be a football fan, and it's not even related to football, but in his very first interview, that's exactly what he said. He said, kind of, there's a lot of fanfare around this, but it's not important what people think when I arrive here. It's important what people think when I leave here. And he's 7 years later left, and everyone's gutted that he's leaving, because he's done what
you never want to be the last person at a party either, and he could stay until it wasn't working, but I think going on your own terms is a lovely way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to take you to the actual design part of the world. What are the key elements you think about when you're trying to create compelling artwork and design and branding and marketing? How do you get hold of it? What does it feel like?
Okay, so I think I've heard it described in different ways. I think there's two different things that I would maybe come back to with that. I've always been a sponge with things, but I also think that I think I'm a magpie as well. And so to use just two sort of...
The imagery of this spongy magpie rocking around. There's going to be a doodle of a spongy magpie, isn't there?
Yeah. I think in terms of just absorbing what's around you, I don't think I'm ever switched off. There's always things that I'm seeing. And so it's not just about following trends. I'm not really interested in following trends at all, but I'm interested in what's happening. Sometimes to know what to avoid as much as what to go and do. But I think that sometimes as well, you spot something and you go, that's really interesting. And I don't know how you do that yet, but I really want to learn, or I want to know about this. And so that's the magpie quality. I think that thing when you spot something that you think someone else has done, and I can't remember, was it Picasso, good artist borrow, great artist steal? There's no design is completely sort of original. It's something where you always take bits and pieces from other things. You give it your own take. It's not about, there's a massive difference between using something as inspiration and plagiarism. Now, we've been involved in something with plagiarism where someone's ripped us off and we've had to have quite a strong word with them. But again, I think it's something that I think you'd appreciate. We've not gone in there and been sort of overbearing and got solicitors and sent letters and things like that. And just try to have a conversation with them and kind of peer to peer say, look, this is where it's at. Really shouldn't have been, I don't think you should have been doing it. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning was, but we've tried to have a conversation about it and just be very open about it and honest and try and have a conversation that way rather than just be abrupt, forthright, here's the letter, deal with it, done, bang. I'm not that kind of person. And to be honest, when I've been treated that way as well on a couple of occasions when people have been abrupt like that. It just, well,
You can't go anywhere with that. You're already
no, exactly. It's just conflict straight away.
When you were talking about the boring and the evolution and the things, I should shout out, this is because of you. You designed our logo and branding and everything. So a key part of where we are. And the X and the cross is linked back to Oxygen House, which is a bit we came with. And our leads on the conservation side of things were your construct. So we've got you to thank for that, which we love.
Lovely stuff.
Hugely appreciated. Other than this work, obviously, what else do you hold in really high regard in your back catalogue that you're really proud of and you think that was fucking cool?
There's a few different projects that we've done over the years that I'm fond of. Again, this whole thing of...
Do you date projects rather than marry them, as opposed to falling in love with them?
Yeah.
You keep that fondness.
But I think that's part of the process as well, in that really early on, because design is so subjective, if you put your heart on the line and someone kind of turns you down, it's soul destroying.
So this was the one you and I both preferred when we looked at. You did 3 logos. Dan is still pissed at me. We didn't take the second logo because it looked like a hammerhead shark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no relevance to a hammerhead shark. Why would we? And he's still angry we didn't go with that one because he loved that logo.
Yeah. But you can never please anybody with any of these situations at all. So this idea of kind of, because things are subjective and because you're putting yourself out there, I think that you've got to be, I think that affects anything that we do long term as well. I never absolutely adore anything that we put out there. It's not that I don't like it at all, but I'm really proud of so much stuff that we've done. But I think part of it is that I can't be crazy attached to it, because also things move on. And so
do you feel ownership to it? Do you feel like you own that?
No, not really.
It's interesting.
I think what I find it really strange, quite surreal, seeing things you've created in the real world.
In the wild, yeah.
Because I think what I see is, when I see that, I remember I drew that. That was me that actually drew that one. And so I remember drawing that, and I remember the things that went into changing it, and I remember some of it. And so I see stuff.
You had a journey with it, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, I should have done more with that. So I'll see things that I'm like, I could have done that better. I could have tweaked that. And that's the same with any project. There's always things that I look back and I'm like, if I had...
I'm like that with estates, right? So what's your favourite estate? The one I'm on. So I love Monaco. If we're up at Invergeldy, of course I love Invergeldy.
Yeah. But I think if I look back on, if I'm thinking of clients, it's not about big clients or little clients or a scale of projects that particularly jumps out. Worcestershire, you are great. I was.
There's L's looking for recognition off camera, going, "Well, we're great. Love me more."
We've got some really good relationships with clients, and it comes down to, I think, again, that same approach with how we want to treat other people. We're not trying to be best mates with clients, but we want to have a relationship with them where you can have a conversation. And we always flippantly call ourselves a coffee table company rather than a boardroom table company, because we would prefer to sit around that and have a coffee and a conversation than have this barrier and a big pitch and things like that. And if we have to do those when we're invited into a meeting, that's absolutely fine, but that's their rules. And when it comes into being, well, this is our rules, you're in that jungle now, this is our thing, this is how we do it. And so you have to sort of buy into what we are as well. And that doesn't always work, again. But some of the work that we've done is when I think we've built that relationship. One of our favourite clients is Astley Vineyard. Love the work we do for Astley Vineyard. Yeah. Astley are a small, relatively local vineyard to us. One of the most well-established vineyards in England, but it's small. They only produce a very small quantity of wine every year. And we don't earn megabucks from working with Astley. But when the new owners came in, and we were asked to come in and help with a new brand.
And love their logo.
And the logo is great. That's one that I'm really proud of, partly because it was a real collaborative effort as well. I don't look at it and go, well, that was all Dave, that was all me. We really collectively worked on that brand, and we continue to do so. And it's got so many different touch points. We created the identity, and that's got into wayfinding and the signage, and it's on all the labels, and we've then done the labels, and we've done the website, and we've done other bits and pieces as well. So it's just been amazing to see how that's evolved from coming in originally and doing the brand and doing 3 or 4 labels, which is what it started with. But even the labels, that came from them taking us on a tour around the vineyard, and they weren't talking about the wine, they were talking about the wildlife. They were talking about the birds and the things that
Have you used this stuff? You listen now. It's lovely.
And so what we pitched back to them was the story of what they told us. It was about the birds that they found in the vineyard. And so nearly all of the bottles have that link connecting them. And it still works now. And because they loved it, they love us. I like to think they still love us as well. We've done some really interesting things with them as well, and it's not always followed that exact thing. They've done some different things. They've created a couple of sparkling labels which are different again, but it's been really fun having that conversation. Going back to one of the earlier questions, it's about I think the idea of storytelling is really important. If you can create that connection and understand what the story is that the people are trying to tell.
It gives it depth and connection and meaning. It's just better.
Yeah, exactly. And so Astlia love that project, love them as a client. If I think about ones that I'm proud of, I'm really proud of working with Worcestershire County Cricket Club, because they're one of the first clients that we were really seeking a name that was established. When I first started out, we were still really green as an organisation, and we got an opportunity to get involved. And again, it was because we knocked on the door and we asked nicely, and they allowed us to pitch for something, and we pitched something that I thought was really good, and they really liked it, and it gave us the opportunity. And we're still working with them now, and we stopped working with them over the pandemic for obvious reasons, really. But we're working with them really closely now, and I'm really proud to be back working with them again, because really even though I was working freelance prior to that, that's really when I see as that's when things really started, because I'd done a lot of work for clients that people had never heard of, and it's really difficult for people to trust you when they've never heard of any of the people you've worked for.
Yeah.
When you can put logos on the bottom of your site, it gives this inherent confidence. Like, well, they work with them. There we go. Yeah. And so they trusted us, and that opened doors for us to get into other places as well. The work we've done has been really varied. We came with the Rapids brand for the cricket club and other various bits of branding and various match day campaigns. I've loved that. But that's one that's really fun. There's a client we have, which is I'm not going to talk about the names of it too much, so it gets too name droppy, but I don't like talking about the names with that one in particular. But there's a client we've got with somebody who's really well known, and I think the thing that I've taken away from that again is that they're really well known for being creative, and we've been able to
and incredibly cool.
Yeah, and we've been able to hit their expectations, and that's been something that's I'm really proud of as well. So the work we've done I'm really proud of, but also I think I was probably most nervous about pitching work to them, just because of their background and the fact that we've done it and we've worked with them for a long time now, and they trust us for the work that we do. Again, there's a lot of pride and confidence I take from that too.
What about the ones that got away? What are the ones that are like, that was so good and I loved it, and it
Yeah, there's one client that's that I look back on and I'm most frustrated about. And again, I'm not going to bring names into it as well, but they're a big multinational, and they approached us completely out of the blue. It was something that I wasn't expecting, but we were given an opportunity to pitch for something, and the pitch, the doc that they gave us and what we pitched them was huge. It was a campaign launching various products domestically and starting to go internationally as well. It was a huge campaign, multifaceted. It was going to be in store. It was going to be various bits and pieces, different touch points all around the country in different ways. And we brought people in. So we got marketing strategists, and we came up with such a great concept, and we won the pitch. And we got the call, I think, on like the 20th of December to say we'd won the pitch. And it was the best Christmas I think I'd ever had, just because it was huge. Up until that, we'd been doing well, but this just took us up.
Yeah.
We were going to explode off the back of that. And then in January, like the 3rd, 4th of January, when we came back, we got contact to say, right, you've won the work, let's get started. And the conversation was, we need to launch this product. what's the cheapest that you could do this design for us? Oh, well, okay, that's not quite how it was going. Okay, so we gave them the price. Oh, no, that's way too much. We can get it for a quarter of that. Okay, where's this coming from? And so first of all, it was a different person. So it was the people we'd been pitching to, and the management team that bought into us weren't involved in the day-to-day running of this. And so the people who were running it day-to-day asked us to do something that wasn't right. And we worked them for 6 weeks until they said, this isn't the right fit. It's clearly not the right fit. But it was never the thing that we'd won. We never got the opportunity to actually do this campaign, to launch the thing that was out there. And there's various bits from what I've heard since of nepotism that came into who actually was going to do the work long term. But that's one that I'm most frustrated about, because I feel we were robbed.
Is there elements from that concept and idea that you've been able to reuse in other sections and areas and things?
Really?
Or it's sat there ready to go for the right partner in the future?
Ish. But we try not to do that. I mean, there's things that you use, but this was so specific to them that I can't see how we would use it. And it was it's a sector that we don't really work in either. So that's why it was such a surprise, because it's not like they'd seen our expertise in a different campaign for a different client. I have no idea how they found us in the first place. So it was such a random phone call, and then to win it, and then to have it taken away in the space of 6 weeks, it was just soul destroying.
And that's the window into the life of an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They can make such a difference left and right on that. Lots of the collaborations and people you mentioned before are things I'd seen that attracted me to pick up the phone and come and talk about working with you in the first place. From your time working with OC on a very environmental based project, have you learned anything? Was anything surprised you about the environment sector since your time working with us?
I think that I'd maybe made some assumptions about the sector. I think one of the problems is that sometimes when whatever happens, whatever sector or subject you're talking about, the thing that sometimes comes to mind is the more extreme views and things that come from that as well. And I feel that what I've really enjoyed about working alongside OC is that I completely understand the motivation and the sort of, I suppose, the reasoning behind an organisation like Just Stop Oil, what they're doing, how they're going about it. But it's almost the fundamentalist approach, and I do understand that. But I feel as though what Oxygen are doing is intelligent, and it's also treating people with respect and kindness. And I think that that's one of the things that I've loved most about the work we've done. And it's a really tiny thing. One of the things that I've really engaged with yourselves was the criticize us section of the website.
Yeah,
absolutely love that. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I've never had anyone asking me to put a criticize us section on a website before. But I think that's part and parcel of a willingness to talk. And I think that that's something that, that I really kind of connected with. And I think it's one of those things, it's a bit like when you buy a car, you suddenly see that car everywhere. From working with you guys, some of the things that you've talked about, I'm spotting similar conversations and things that I go, oh, that's interesting. That's the same sort of thing that they're talking about. And so it's opened doors that I don't know if it's chicken and egg. I don't know which came first with it, whether I would have noticed it anyway, or just because I'm already thinking about it, whether I'm seeing these things and more open to these kind of ideas and suggestions. But I think it's certainly, I feel like it's opened my eyes to the way that this sector can work and can flourish as well, potentially.
That's awesome. I was going to ask another question, but I don't want to. That's a perfect way to finish it, Rob. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And this, of all the podcasts, has been the one of just sitting and talking to an old friend. So thank you very much for coming in, and thank you for branding as OC.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.